Welcome back to the Explicit Measures podcast with Tommy, Seth, and Mike. Good morning, everyone.
'Tis the morning.
It's a good
Good
morning.
morning.
Good
I feel
morning.
like it's a good morning.
Why is it so good for you, Tommy?
You know what? I just look at this and I realize that we're at 384 episodes. Maybe it's the end of the year and you're thinking about what you're thankful for. Maybe that was supposed to be things.
382. You're overestimating here a little bit.
Over by 2.
We're not there. Hopefully we get there.
You're such an optimist. You're in the future, Tommy. By 2 weeks, by 2 episodes.
It is pretty crazy. I was looking at some of our podcast stuff. They're like, by the way, people have listened to us for 15,000 hours.
Wow.
Why?
What a waste.
What a waste.
You're never getting that time back.
Guys, what are we doing?
Interesting. 15,000 hours. That's a lot of talk time. One thing that astounds me about the internet, whether you're doing video or creating content or media, it's the volume. It's the volume of reach that you get now. I mean, this is why I think tech companies make so much money, because they can do a little thing and reach thousands of hours. We look at the content that we produce, and it's thousands of hours of watch time. It's just incredible. So anyways, this is, I guess, a testament to the community. Thank you very much for pay attention. Listen, we would probably still do this anyways and shout into the void and scream at each other without a podcast, but we enjoy that you come along with us for the ride as well.
Just for a different insight on that, that's almost 2 years of time.
Oh my God, what a waste.
There's
15,000 hours.
Yeah, there's 8,760 hours in a year.
That's pretty good.
That's 24/7. That's like nonstop listening.
Yeah.
And this is coming from the heart. We said when we started that we wanted to do this type of format, just like if we were having a drink or just talking or meeting for breakfast. And the fact that people listen to us, and honestly, I forget sometimes that people do listen. I enjoy these mornings just talking to you guys and having some of the conversations like today is going to be a good one. But we really appreciate everyone who listens. You guys really do, I think, help us do this. And we've been doing it twice a week for 4 years now.
4 years. 3 years. I don't even know when we started. Question.
May 4th, 2021.
Okay.
Wow.
Dang.
3 years. That's pretty impressive.
Oh, you're right.
Awesome.
2024.
Well, it will be in
right. I am
over here in another year. We'll be good. All right. Enough yammering about all the time and the statistics of things. Tommy and I and Seth all love the numbers of all the things, so that's why we go. It tickles the right parts of our brain. That being said, let's go into some news items. I keep doing this. Before we go to news, let's talk about our main topic. At Microsoft Ignite, there was an announcement around the Onelake data catalog. And I've been playing around with it a little bit. I've been reading some of the documentations on it. I kind of want to react to what we heard around the Onelake data catalog features. I also want to kind of react to some features that I'm looking at it right now. And yeah, it's coming together. It's definitely in its early phases, I would say. But I'd be just going to unpack what we've seen so far and kind of where we think things are going with the Onelake data catalog. I'm actually really excited about it. I think this is a really rich feature set to Fabric. It's actually quite needed as we get larger and larger organizations with more and more data showing up. So I'm very excited to talk about that one. That's our main topic. All right, Tommy, what's our first news item that we have on docket here today?
Yeah, we kind of have a 1-2 punch of warehouse and database updates, really around the functionality around your experience, not necessarily about the product itself, but one is staying updated with the IntelliSense in the Fabric warehouse, just making it a lot easier to do some of the commands that you'd want to do, which goes along with the other update, which is the command palette in the Fabric warehouse and in the SQL database editor. This really goes to me when I'm thinking about our conversations around Microsoft's kind of cadence of product release. Is it's really much like we're going to introduce the foundational tool, but we have all these other ideas on what we want to release. Again, nothing here is completely new. Like, SQL SSMS has had these features for a long time, but it's really nice to see with even all the products they're integrating into Fabric, the fact that we also get the nice kind of user experience too.
Very interesting. That's good news. So you made a comment there that maybe I have either a thought around or, well, let me step back. Two thoughts really. One is IntelliSense. I am using IntelliSense in the DAX query view. Very helpful. It's a little bit aggressive because if you make a new line, it immediately tries to pop up a list of functions for you right away. So that's the add columns I keep accidentally adding all the time in IntelliSense in DAX query view. So I hope they fix that. But in general, though, I would say IntelliSense is a pretty robust feature wherever I see it, and I kind of rely upon it. And I don't think it's one of these subtle features that I don't think you realize how much you rely upon it until you have a tool that does not have it.
Where you
Do
have
you
to type
agree?
everything out. No,
Yeah.
absolutely, I agree. And the more
But it's subtle.
more any of the code helpers help, whether it's slap a name on it, right? IntelliSense,
Even looking at the
AI,
definition, like,
whatever.
hey, these are required. This is optional.
Yeah. Like when it's, hey, you're using this join a ton, so I'm just going to say, is it this one? And it's a lot of them are very smart. So yeah, absolutely, it's a huge time saver.
Yeah,
huge time saver because
It's funny.
it reminds me now I can, for somebody who doesn't code as much anymore because I lead teams of coders. I probably code faster now than when I was doing it full time because I still remember when you're in the guts of something and you just go, oh man, okay, I've got to join to 4 different tables. This is going to be the same repetitive thing over and over. Or here's the slight alter and adjustment, right? You still have to type it all out. You're still like, or you're copy and pasting. And now with IntelliSense, it's just, it finishes the whole thing for you a lot of the times. It's really nice, man. It's a nice cheat code.
These helpful tools, and Mike, I have the same issue. Microsoft really wants me to do absolute functions. It's like, but that's not what I'm looking for. Every time I do a new line, it's like, no, I don't want to do an absolute. I don't need absolute.
Yep.
But these help for things like if you took away autocorrect or spelling for me in my day-to-day, I wouldn't graduate college today. Like there's 100%. A good chance I'd get through high school, but I don't think I'd get farther. So
if it doesn't have I often write on whiteboards for things, and there's no red squiggly lines on whiteboards that tell me when I've spelled something wrong. So my spelling really is atrocious when I'm not using a computer for whatever reason.
I just did a dashboard in a day, and one of the things we're doing top competitors, and I'm like, I wasn't sure in my ability to spell competitors in that moment. I'm like, we're just going to say top comp. That's what we're going to do. So everyone just write top comp. Don't worry what that means. So no, but it's nice to see this too in the web, right? Because I think a lot of these things we're used to in like Visual Studio or VS Code or obviously Power BI desktop. But Mike, I hate giving you credit sometimes, but I have to. These products are becoming very seamless on the web, and they're becoming still DAX is to be desired. Like building a model in the web, I'm going to write like a C-, D+.
Wait until you get Tyndall Viewer. When you get Tyndall Viewer, Tyndall Editor inside the web, dude, I'm telling you, already I'm using Tyndall Editor inside VS Code. It's really slick. I'm very excited to see where this is going to
go. And I think so. You're close, really right on point. They are doing a great job, and like they're kind of taking some from the Power Apps books because they're the only way to build there is that, and you feel like you're not in the web, and they're doing a great job doing that too in Fabric. So
I love how it pains you.
It really
I love how it physically pains you to say, hey, Mike, you're right.
Well, not just right, like 100% right too. Like I'll give him some credit, but 100%.
Well, for those who are listening who are newer to the podcast, Tommy's referring to episode 1, so you should go back and listen to episode 1 where I make this prediction. And here we are. It's really coming together now. It's becoming quite the plan to bring everything to the web, and I love it. I think it's good. One other comment I had here, Tommy Barney, you made a comment around, SSMS has already had IntelliSense, particularly for the SQL data warehouse experiences of things. One thing I'll note here is SSMS has been around for a long time. I don't know the pattern of like when a new tool comes out, how long it takes them to add IntelliSense. A lot of the tools that we've interacted with, or at least I have interacted with in the data space, the IntelliSense on SSMS, I've never not had it. SSMS has always had IntelliSense. So I don't know how long it takes Microsoft to build a product that gets IntelliSense. So we may actually be ahead of schedule as far as getting better IntelliSense based on when the product arrives till when the IntelliSense shows up. I don't know. But the fact that a product has had IntelliSense for a long period of time to me isn't a speaking point, rather than when was the product out and when did it first get IntelliSense? I think that's more of a bigger milestone, because that means Microsoft is investing in making it easier for you to write code.
You're
Does that make
making
sense
it
what I'm
very.
saying?
No,
It-
I think it's a great. Yeah, go ahead.
Yeah, yes and no. Yes and
Okay.
no, because like the deployments of SQL they're like every 6 months or something. Like you can't screw that up. Otherwise, it's a big deal related to like,
True.
okay, we just shot this out, and actually IntelliSense is why you need to upgrade all of your systems again. Like here's the patch for that.
True. True.
Versus, I think one, having established that functionality, how it gets implemented, plus the advancements of technology, cloud, where we're at,
Sure.
and it being in Fabric, I think offer up potentially faster paths to integrating existing platforms into that. But that's just, like I said, that's a guess.
And you're bringing up. There's one other wrench here, and not to divert too much, but a pretty big wrench here too is I've been playing a lot with like the Azure AI Foundry, the new AI Studio, and
I haven't had a chance to do it done. I don't have much experience there.
But I think the bigger part is with all the Copilot things too. If I were to ask you, if I had to take one away from you, IntelliSense or Copilot, which one are you keeping? And I think the IntelliSense was our AI, has been our AI for all these years, but now with the introduction of all these helper coding models, like be it again whether it's local or you're using Copilot or using GitHub Copilot, I mean, is that not more valuable right now and useful than your IntelliSense?
I mean, it depends, right? So if you talk about Copilot for writing like very common languages like Python that are already very well trained on that, and SQL, I would agree. Copilot is better than those. But Copilot inside the scope of DAX, it's not really doing. It's doing some interesting things. It definitely does some stuff. It helps me explain the functions. It gets me documentation when I need it. It's being used kind of a little bit more of like a lookup tool. It does suggest some measures at this point, but it's very limited in the DAX space. So if from the code languages that I need to know, where do I want to apply Copilot, and where does it find it more valuable than IntelliSense? Well, for sure it's in Python, and for sure it's in SQL. Those are two very robust languages, and it has been very well trained on them. If you throw Copilot at report side of things, I'm a little less inclined to use it, and it seems a bit more new, or they're still trying to refine the experience to figure out what really needs to be involved when Copilot shows up to a report or a page, or how that's going to work. So I think if I'm picking my choices here, Tommy, so to answer your question directly, is Copilot better than IntelliSense? Yes, it is. It's got more legs to it, and I think it has more potential to grow better than straight IntelliSense. Do I pick it over it right now? It depends what tool I'm in. That's how I would kind of feel about it. So anyways.
No, that's a good point.
Maybe move on to your other article, or did you already talk about it already? The second article here is introducing the command palette in the Fabric Data Warehouse. This is a pure like notebook play, feels like right here at this one.
Yeah. And I think that's we kind of lumped them together in terms of, again, two features, or I guess user experiences that have been available in other products in Microsoft, but now basically readily available in the web.
For those, Tommy, who don't understand we say these words, and again, when I talk to my wife about anything about data, she's like, "You just say words. I don't understand the context of your words." Yeah. So explain for us really quickly, what is the command palette, and what does that mean when that shows up in the Fabric Data Warehouse?
Yeah, probably a little context. You have a lot of options and actions you can do in the data warehouse and SQL database, whether it's writing code, formatting. But rather than having a giant menu like your Word where it's like edit and then there's a ton of ribbons there, I can bring up this palette and search for the action that I want to do. For example, if I want to format my code, in the case of the warehouse, I click on F1 or type F1 and I immediately type in format. If I want to search for a function, if I want to save, if I want to add something or look for a table, all those things I can do using the command palette and just simply searching for. It's this nice little ribbon that comes up. Now, again, the only problem with web and product, if you're going from like Visual Studio, that's usually your Control-Shift-P, which is print on the web. So, we kind of run into those things. But I think the bigger point here is any action I want to do in the interface I'm in, all I have to do is bring up the command palette just by clicking F1 and search for the action that I want to do.
So this is interesting, and I was just going through a group of people and explaining them, like we were doing DAX Query View, we were showing them how to use the palette feature inside, or more in DAX Query View, so it has its own palette there as well, the command palette. So a bunch of commands you can go do. Really interesting. It's very useful. My only challenge, though, is there's a lot of commands in there. I don't know what they do, and I don't know where you find, like, what's the list of every action in that list, and what should it do based in the context of DAX Query View? So I don't really know all the things at this point, but there's a couple that I did understand and knew how to work. But my favorite command of all the commands out of the Monaco or the editor with code is Control-Shift-L is my favorite. And what it does is it allows you to highlight some text, and it selects every instance of that text. And it also puts a cursor at the end of all of that. So you can have multiple cursors. If you want to impress your friends, this is just a tip for you who listen to the podcast. If you don't listen to anything else we talk about today, you want to impress your friends and wow your neighbors, use multiple cursors in an editor. People will be floored. They're like, wow, you're impressive. Like, that is an impressive skill to have.
Do you know that's available in DAX, in Power BI, not even the query view, in the formula bar?
Oh, of course I know this. This is why I use it. This is so amazing. That's why I'm bringing it up.
I'm taking your baton and I'm running with it.
I'm bringing it up.
D?
Control-Shift-D selects one item. So Control-D selects a single character, like a group of characters. Right. So if you highlight something, it'll find the exact phrase of it. And then if you Control-D multiple times, again and again and again, it keeps selecting the next found version of that same bit of text. So if you want to, if you have 3 areas or you're modifying multiple things at once, it's very easy to Control-D, boom, 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 and then you have these things highlighted, and now you have multiple cursors and you can modify around. The other last trick of all this thing is if you want to just drop the cursor, multiple cursors down, you can use the Alt key and just Alt and click wherever you want the cursor to live. So if you have crazy amounts of formatting you want to do all at once, and you want to type it once, but you want to have multiple cursors, dude, I'm telling you, wow, it is very powerful. So anyways, that's when you know you work with a professional.
You know what else is really powerful that I just want to point out here, Mike?
Yeah.
When the SQL text is formatted, what do you notice in there?
Nope, we don't notice anything. It looks just like good formatted text.
There was literally an entire episode where I think we were combating on the pros and cons of putting the commas before or after the column.
But wait a minute here. Wait a minute here, though. Wait a minute. There, the screenshot is showing they're about to hit the button for formatting. It's going to fix it. It's not currently fixed. That's the problem.
That's a good one. So we have a T-shirt on that.
So either one of two things has happened, right? Either Microsoft has sided with Seth, or someone has infiltrated the team to be the person who chose how to format the SQL, so that it's on the other end. There's the debate being. In the select statement, do the commas belong before the columns you're requesting or after? And Mike and I were on both sides. I've always done it after.
Yep.
That's the joke here is that's how it's formatting right now. Is it's after the column, and Mike's a big before.
So I'm going to give you one little insight here. The whole reason that I am commas in front of the code is because I Googled this one time and I found an article that said, "Hey, we ran a whole bunch of is this valid code across hundreds of thousands of samples across GitHub." And they said, of the valid code that was written or published out to GitHub, of that valid code, more valid code was found when the commas were in the front versus when they were in the back. And so I was like, great. Random article on the internet? Thanks. I'm going to use that and change how I do every bit of code writing for the rest of my life because of that one little article. So now I prefer to put commas in the front whenever I'm writing SQL or other codes. Now, When you run this in Python notebooks, though, the commas are in the front. So there may be splitting some things. I think there's other places. So Tommy, you might have to pull up a data warehouse here and go format some SQL code and let us know where does the commas get placed when they format it automatically. Are they putting it in the front?
They're gonna put it in the back. You know that. You and I both know that.
I don't know,
I'll take
man.
a look, but listen,
millennials are now at Microsoft. I don't know, man. Things could be changing.
The people who are commas in the front are very few and far between, and they are going to go with the majority, not the best code, because I agree. I have converted to a front coder or a front comma person myself. They lead the way.
They help you get. There's less errors when I write code. I mean, it's anecdotal at this point. It's anecdotal because I feel like I write less errors when I write with commas in the front because I know, it's a new line. Drop a comma. If I want to comment it out, I can comment out the code better. It's like it just all feels a little bit more fluid when I'm writing it. So yeah, wild. Anyways,
that's a good little take, Seth.
All right, we'll jump into our main topic for now. So jumping to the main topic, let's go over to our Onelake data catalog. Tommy, give us a quick overview. There is a Onelake data catalog feature that is out. So there's an official blog about this. I'll put the blog, the Onelake catalog that is now. It's a very sparse piece of documentation at this point, but I'm assuming over time, as features are added, we'll get more and more features there. So Tommy, give us a quick overview of the Onelake catalog.
So we'll bring it back to Chicago, and one of the three main features that Arun and the Microsoft team was releasing was this idea, this concept of the Onelake catalog. Now, you may think, oh, that's just the data hub with different cosmetic, a different dress, so to speak. Well, right now, they have made some major user interface changes available today. You can check it out right now if you haven't. It's now called the Onelake catalog. And really, it provides all of the actions that you'd want to do on any type of really artifact. It's not just your semantic models is available. If I want to refresh, schedule refresh. If I want to take a look at some of the metrics, any other actions I want to do. But importantly, one of the features not available yet, but I think going to be a lot of our conversation today, is this idea of governance in the Onelake catalog. Some of the things that they mentioned during this was the fact that you can go to the Onelake catalog, go to the governance tab, and I can see, hey, 40% of your models are not tagged. 30% of your models that are semantic models are not certified or promoted at all. They have no certification on this. So there's this list of features that really join in a centralized area, things that you would want to do from a center of excellence or from a data governance point of view. For our sake, for our conversation today, I think there's a few questions that we want to ask or that are going to come up, and I think they're going to continue to come up is, how is this impactful? How does this integrate with a governance team? And really, should it? Should this be part of a day-to-day or the weekly calls with the features that are available? This is something that I think we all see as the holy grail, not the Onelake catalog, but the idea of a centralized area to look at all of my data to say, what can we improve on? Where are we lacking? Where should we prioritize? That is something we're all trying to seek, and there's not one product yet that can do that. So one of the questions is that it? But let's start with the idea of the data hub. And now that we've transitioned to the Onelake catalog, have you guys ever used the data hub in your day-to-day for trying to find a model and like what this idea is?
To be frankly honest, the data hub is not extremely relevant for me. I've kind of favorited the things that I need. I know the workspaces I want to go to. I kind of live, again, let me give you my navigation pattern, right? I'm not a normal user anymore in Power BI. I'm more of a pro user. I'm going in to build things, create content. I know where I'm going. So I think my navigation pattern starts with more of the workspace level and then go from workspace into what I need to build or create directly from there. I have found that in my building more automated of reports, it's just very nice to have a lot of favorites. So immediately log in, go to the favorites area. I have my couple things here that I want. I click on the one or two reports at the top of my list. I go right to them. Again, this is kind of the point we've made, I think, in the past here is think of your organization as a pyramid. There's going to be a lot of things at the bottom level of your pyramid that there's going to be a lot of junk that's kind of made or things that are just assets that are there. You look at them a couple times, you move on, not a big deal. You don't do a lot of extra things with them. but there's a couple reports that you're going to have that you're going to always look at. They're always going to be a top of mind. And there's like a handful of things you need to get access to a lot. So I don't do a lot of just general discovery of the Onelake catalog or the Onelake hub at this point. I don't know. How about you, Seth?
Creature I have, like, I know where everything is. So like typically I'm diving in directly into the locations without using the data hub. So it's not a regular part of my day typically, but I see the value in it for the lay users or people who are using Power BI a lot.
And that's an important distinction here. And Mike, I think you mentioned it. You're the pro user, so you don't need to get to it. And I think the Data Hub initially was an adoption play. It was meant, the reason it exists.
Maybe originally, but I don't feel like it is now.
Maybe not now, but I think the initial idea of having the Data Hub was for the discoverability of content. And I think maybe it was, I would lean more towards the idea of the persona that they had in mind was more of the layperson, so to speak, rather than the developer with the data.
Yeah, I agree.
I agree.
And I mean, we tried pushing that initially with the project, but it never caught on. And so, and I think we see this regardless of that persona, we're still seeing that lack of really use.
So one thing that Nico is talking about here, what I want to point on was my next point here is, if you're not using domains in your company, I highly recommend you look at using domains in your organization. The reason being is the Onelake catalog lets you filter all of the content by the workspaces that are participating in a particular domain. So this makes a lot of sense to me. So what they're doing right now is, so to your point, Tommy, it's more about being discoverable things. Me as an administrator and a more of a leader inside the Power BI organizations that I deal with, it's much better to find groups of content. Hey, this is the HR data. This is the financial data. This is the sales data. Having domains on top of that and rolling all that content together makes it very easy because there's, to be honest, even in small organizations, there's too many things to go look at. Using domains to filter down to the appropriate kind of topics, make lake houses, semantic models, those things, extremely helpful. And I really like this new experience of using domains. So they're definitely winning with domains at this point. I think that's the way to go when you start looking at this stuff.
So I don't know if that solves, and if I'm looking at the Onelake catalog now, there's 4 elements on the left-hand side. All items, my items, endorsed, and favorites. And then I can filter based on the domain and tags. Yep. So let me ask you guys.
Yes, and tags. Yes.
And tags.
Tags is another one that I'm like, okay. Yeah. So I have a feature around tags that I'd like to see in catalog. But yeah, keep going. I like the tags idea.
And I guess my question to you guys kind of right off the bat, with what they're doing with Onelake catalog now, with your own estimation, who's the main persona here? Is it the developer? Is the person building? Or is it the person discovering?
I think, well, it's both, honestly. I think it should be a little bit of both, right? So it should be from like the administration side. There should be some features there that let the administrators of this. So for example, let me give you one about tags, right? So you can drop down a tag item and say, look, I want to go to this domain, call it HR. And then in the domain, I want to have anything that's gold certified. So you can literally go to the domain, filter down the data by topic, by subject matter area, and then add a tag for, okay, this is gold data. That would mean all your lake houses, all your semantic models that are pulling from gold would show themselves. The challenge of this is a little bit is, for me, is, okay, as an admin of this area, not every department or every user is going to certify or bring or do all the tagging that they need. And so for me as an admin, I'd like to be able to just poke around a little bit. Like, let's make it really for discovery on these things. And one of them is I'd like to make sure either mandate tags are being used or have the ability as an admin to easily add tags. Oh, this is a thing that literally the lake house says the name gold in it. It should probably have a tag of gold, right? Or whatever that may be, right? So there should be more ability or easier ability for me to then add tags. One of the other things that I think is really interesting when we talk data catalogs, it's very important to have a data owner. I don't think there's enough visibility as to where the data owners are and how do I change a data owner on a particular semantic model or other things as well. So I also think from an administrator standpoint, I want to be able to say, oh, Tommy's the owner of this data set. I don't know who to publish this one, but I need to realign it because Tommy's going to own this one moving forward. So I think there's some ownership pieces that need to be able to be adjusted here. And that's kind of my main two, like at the high level for filtering and finding. I have a whole bunch of other features here that I think would be useful when we get down to like looking into a semantic model and seeing the list of tables, names, columns. There's a whole bunch of other stuff here that I think we're missing.
We've had a previous conversation. Okay, good.
No, I could see multiple different use cases and personas, right? To Mike's point, admin, cleanup, management, promotion of certain artifacts, or put things on the path. Reach out to the owners to see what levels of certification are needed, if at all, right? Like, so it's the de facto one location, right? From a development standpoint or developer, quick search for, especially if you start to build a solution that has different business units owning different data sets, rather than go building something. Hey, I'm going to go search for, who do we have this type of object out there, or tags would certainly help as long as there's standardization across the org. But just the quick finder, right? Because before I'm going to go do any work, I want to see what we have out there that I might not have access to. And I do like that was the approach that they took. It's not filtered down to only the things you can access. It's open, and you don't have access, but you can at least see that the artifact exists. And I think that's one of the, so super valuable on many levels. The biggest thing for the dev too is like who the domain owner is, so you can go understand what the data set or report is doing, but predominantly probably the data set. Tech-ish business users may have like the same type of need related to like data access. So same thing, they could find, where can I go plug into this data, or are there reports? And then obviously the general user is just looking for reports. So across the board, I think, in general, the first deployment of the options that we have meet all those needs. And I think that's mainly predicated on the two types of filters they've chosen, which is, domain and tags, plus showing everything is a good first step for everybody to see what's available and the types of artifacts that they should be engaging in.
I have a hot take here on, I think, what the primary person or persona here is, and I think it's self-service in the world of Microsoft Fabric. Because if you actually look at the user story of any particular type of data in the Onelake catalog, if I look at semantic model or I look at Lakehouse, I can do that Explorer feature where the data hub might have had the vision of like a VP going in and trying to look at content. To me, with the ability to filter with domains, with tags, well, if my tags may be based on the operation or the action trying to be taken, and the fact that we're looking at warehouses, we're looking at databases, we're looking at lakehouse or semantic models. The reports may be very low on the list on what the vision here for the Onelake catalog is. We're really dealing with builders, and there's obviously the element of the admin here, or we'll call it the pro user like us, where I can look at my refresh schedule. I can do a lot of other administration things, but really this looks like I just need to connect to our marketing lakehouse and I'm going to do some extra analytics on it, or we need to build a report on this. To me, I see a lot of self-service, but not the self-service that we lived in Power BI, where it was report building. Because again, there's so many other things I can build now where I don't know if it's just pure developer.
But okay, so I don't understand that, because I can see all artifacts. The only limitation I do see right now is the fact I can't see org apps because that's how that's how things are shared predominantly today. But I guess I don't understand your comment. So, I wouldn't limit it to just people building, because reports are part of this. So
but you made a good point though about the org apps. So this is what I'm trying to say. Yeah.
But at the same time, Fabric and everything is predicated on data mesh, right? Which is essentially the theories behind having owners of different areas, but a fundamental key part of any system, whether it's centralized or you're separating out the ownership into different areas, et cetera, is discoverability. And that's every level. That the lay user who has no idea what they're doing should be able to pop in here and go, I'm looking for a sales report. Oh, look, like these artifacts are owned by the sales domain. This is the owner of this report or this thing. I should go talk to them, right? It guides people into the avenues by which are very challenging, by the way, right now, without this central repository of where the heck do I go to find something that I need, be it a report, be it a data set, be it, the owner. And this is that portal, I think, that they're leveraging for all of that. It's not just for the doers.
Oh, so let me push back a bit. So first, two questions. First, why didn't this work with the data hub, which was really focused just around reports? And we
Because
know
it was just reports.
But do you know anyone in your organization, or Mike, did you have any clients that that relied from a consumer point of view that used it? I think the org apps, the point that you
It
made
just
about
started.
the org apps.
I think we're in the very beginning stage of this. I think you're pushing on something that doesn't exist, honestly. It's not there yet. I'm more of the point of there needs to be a central location of stuff like this, right? No one's going to go digging through every single the alternative to this is go through one workspace at a time looking for the item you need, or use the search thing at the top of the screen, which has mixed results in my opinion. Right. So you need something to have again, there's so much content. We need controls here to filter down by what we're looking for. This is the fastest thing I've seen to say, go to the topic area of sales and marketing. Here's the list of the workspaces that are in this domain. So filter by domain first. That should be the first filter you start using. Here's the list of all the workspaces. Start clicking through the workspaces. Boom, 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 boom. And you see all the artifacts just change for you right there. That's the fastest way I'm going to see you're going to discover things. This makes a lot of sense to me. My challenge here, though, is not to that point, Tommy. It's too new for people to really know how to use it yet. I guess this is one more of these things of it's another data point. No one's using it right now. No, it's just not out. No one even knows it exists. It just got announced a month ago. So I think people are still trying to figure out what it's there for and how to best utilize it. Because I think the organizing patterns haven't quite evolved yet from the community. People haven't really spoken about it enough to really make it, oh yeah, this is an effective approach of using this.
And that's absolutely a fair point. I think the last thing I'll say from a consumer builder point of view is I think we're realizing, and I think Microsoft finally realized that consumers do need to be hand fed, so to speak. And that's why we have the org apps. That's a really good point, though, that we have the organizational apps, because you could have this whole catalog of discoverability of content to consume, but we already had that for consumers with the data hub for reports. This is just adding in everything, which a consumer, if they were overwhelmed with the data hub, this is now just another layer on that. The org apps and even just a workspace app is really the way a consumer is going to consume. It's the way that they're going to find content. So this is, to me, I'm seeing all of this built for builders of any capacity.
No, I think it's for consumers, and I don't agree with your statement of I think they're overwhelmed. I don't think they're overwhelmed by this. I think they don't even know it exists. Honestly, I think it's purely a discoverability thing at this point. I think it's going to become a pattern, and then as more as the community picks up on the value of it. My challenge is less around getting and using the tool. My challenge is what data is actually being presented. So if you read the Microsoft documentation and you go down and you play with Onelake catalog, doggone it, you're pulling in all the semantic models. You have the name of the tables. You have the name of the columns, but it literally says it's a type of table or column or measure. I need to know what data type is it. I need to know what's the description of that column. So there's things in the semantic model that exist that should just be present in these tables. There should be, if I have the ability to see one of these columns inside the data catalog, there should be a preview button. I should be able to preview the data that is in that column or the preview of the data in that table if I have access to it. So to me, there's a whole bunch of things missing here that is like,
you have access to it.
If I have access. And so, there should be certain fields that are available, like, hey, you don't have access, request access here. That's what this is for, right? Here's all the content that's out there. these are things that you should be able to see or not able to see based on like your permissions. So there should be something flags on things, maybe say allow this to be discoverable. There's already stuff like this that is being controlled other places. Maybe we do something where an entire domain can be discoverable or not. Do you want this domain to be hidden from the data catalog or the Onelake catalog? Yeah, I maybe want that. So, I think there's ideas here, like by default, everything is kind of shared out there in the world, and you get descriptions of columns, you get descriptions of models, like all these rich things that we should be doing in the semantic model. Those things need to be brought forward and put here. Once those are available, now I think we have a data catalog that people are really wanting to use. That's, I think, what we're missing at this point. So, as an admin of the data catalog areas, I'd like to be able to go see all the data sets that are there and see which columns don't have descriptions, and then be able to edit them right there in line inside the data catalog because I'm an owner of that thing. If I'm the owner, I should be able to modify that semantic model right there and add the details that I need right inside the data catalog. And now everyone has access to the definition of the tables, the columns, the models. That's what I think would be very powerful. But now maybe I'm stepping too much on the toes of Purview. I don't know. Well, I don't think people are going to use it without that.
I mean, if the intent of this, per the Microsoft article, is find, explore, and use, you're talking about the and use part.
Yeah,
it's got to use it in line or have a tighter knit kind of.
Data exists, and
right.
So the heartburn I'm having is these things are already in the semantic model. I'm already spending time to build them. Why not just you're showing me that the columns and the tables exist in these semantic models? Just expose them, please. Just pull them out, or let me pick what columns I want to see and give me a couple other data points that me as the admin is going to allow you to see on this data set.
So, I don't know if I'd hang my hat there, but I get it.
I see that, but where I'm hung up, Mike, is from a security and also the type of person here. Who's that for? Is that for you, Mike, the admin? Is that for the VP to look at a data set, to look at that data, right? To look at that metadata, so to speak. Who's that feature for?
I think it's for anyone who's interested. So if you're talking about discoverability, me as the admins for sure need this kind of stuff. But, you should also have so think about, when you're in Power Query, you have these general column statistics.
Yeah.
It just tells you how many blanks, how many fulls, how many nulls. There's potentially even a health score of this data set, right? There's a whole bunch of other things that go along with this that are relevant to this story. And again, what I'm comparing this against is I'm comparing this against Purview. Purview does a better job of saying, look, I found your data set. Here's the columns. Users can add descriptions, names, or other things to those columns and comments or whatever. Who's a data owner? I can't be so naive to think that a single lakehouse is owned by one individual. Every table in that lakehouse could be owned by different individuals. So there needs to be the ability of saying, where does this data come from in this lakehouse? Here's all the tables we have. Great. Who's the owner of every table? Where's that steward of that information? So
if I'm not mistaken, though, you have to have build permission to do that. If I want to do the Explorer feature on a semantic model, I can't just be a consumer.
Sure.
So
then
okay, so it's only
permissions are fine. Then that's already worked out. So if you're saying build permission, you can't even see it without build permission, then you're telling me that the resolution of who can discover other data, whether or not it's shared or not, it's already resolved. The permissions are already built into the Onelake catalog, which I would expect that's expected. I would have nothing. I wouldn't want to expect to be sharing data in there that's not supposed to be shown to the entire organization.
Yeah, I feel like it's an interesting point with the security roles, and we have the member and build permissions now, but there's almost like this second layer here of the metadata of being able to see that, but not be able to do anything with it. But you did mention something, Mike, where the feature that's coming out with the Onelake catalog that's not available today. Sure. Everything we've talked about today is available. You can start using it right now. Just fire up your computer if it's not up. But the other feature that they really pushed was this idea of governance. And again, this is a different tab. It's in the Onelake catalog, but I basically see a dashboard and actionable things I can do. If you've ever built a resource in Azure, you know what I'm talking about. Hey, welcome to your database. Here are things you probably want to do. You want to put security around this. And the same way with Fabric, they're going to have, hey, here 30% of your workspaces don't have any tags. So start acting on those right now. So there's going to be all these actionable kind of dashboard things. I don't know if it's customizable, like if you know what your thresholds are for your business, but I want to ask you guys, because as I've thought about this and when I saw this the first time, my first thought seeing that was, oh wow, this would be a perfect part integration of a weekly call or your calls with your data governance or your center of excellence to get on it. That would be something that shares on a screen, that has action items after, that everyone can see and that we actually work on together. No different than looking at your Jira board or your, you know, where your project is. So I will ask you guys, from what you have seen and heard and what's been at least discussed by Microsoft, do you see this as, I don't want to use pinnacle, but very close to what governance should be and the platform to do so?
No, I don't think they're even close to what governance should be looking like in that space. Even having a couple minor action items. I mean, when you talk about governance, people pay really big dollars for things like Informatica and other large data cataloging tools that scan things. Purview is out there as well. It's trying to compete with those tools. There's a lot of money being made around the organization and discoverability of your data. So I think this is going to be, anecdotally, it'll be helpful. I think it will add some value. It'll add more to the story. This is part of the story that I think Power BI is missing today currently, the discoverability, being able to manage that and govern that. Yes, it's there. But ultimately, you're going to need more data quality metrics, like this column can't be blank. This column has sensitive data in it. This one, like, there's other things here that I think that are going to push you more towards that purview side of things. That's the tool that we really need. What we're getting now, I think, in Onelake Catalog is like kind of a lighter weight version of that, right? Something that's just going to help people find some content. And I was in a training recently, and the question was, how can we make sure that people understand what data is out there so that they're not duplicating the same data engineering or the same table? They want to have domain owners make data and information and distribute that across the organization. That's what they want. And like, I agree with them. That is the right approach. Does this tool do it 100% right now? No. So I don't think it's going to be pivotal.
I think of all of the things that encompass data governance, right? Is this a meeting, Tommy, that you can, I think, manage the metadata of the discoverable items that you're trying to like manage within the organization? Because if this is a, hey, we're going to review what's in the data catalog and look for things that are not tagged appropriately, or, you know, like these are our bullets for metadata management of these artifacts. Yeah, sure. But that's like one of 15 different things that you're doing in data governance, right? It's not the de facto like replacement for everything that you're going to be doing from a governance strategy perspective.
And I'm totally fair, and I may play devil's advocate here, but I'm a few thoughts here, Mike. Because you mentioned like the idea to see the empty columns, and it's kind of like we're talking about micro governance of individual semantic model issues compared to macro governance around things that are available in the Fabric space. The other benefit here on why wouldn't I integrate this part of the meeting is to use the Christmas spirit here. This, once it's available out of the box, will have these metrics for me. This is like opening up and it's my toy T-Rex that just works, compared to, in order to get to the point you're saying, I mean, you're talking about setting up and like, oh, your drone's available, but guess what? It's going to take 2 hours of setup. There's a lot more customization. And this is all being said where I completely agree with you. The governance side that you're talking about, when be able to see blank data, missing data, valid data, both on like types of columns and also like what are our attributes, is absolute necessity, but we don't have it. And we don't have a common tool or universal tool. On the other side of the coin, we're going to have something right out of the box where we can really accomplish a lot. It's not just something going to be nice to look at. This is where we can actually accomplish a lot and at least organize our content. We've talked about the gunk, that it may not have everything, but again, I can open up and start playing with my T-Rex right away, where everything else we're talking about, I mean, that is a team working on that for a while and continually having to.
When I hear you talking about those things, I hear a thought that popped into my mind is this is a technology solution for a poor process solution in some ways, right? So the technology is trying to solve something that has poor process around it. Like all this is fine and dandy, but at the end of the day, what process does your organization have that you're going to use to help you govern all the proliferation of things you're going to create? That's where this is going. And to your point, Tommy, around the actual dashboard, yeah, let me have a dashboard. Let me look at one place where I can see all the data sets that have failed refresh in a particular domain. And what's that list look like, right? Which data sets have stopped refreshing because they've been failing so much, right? There's just some simple questions I think we're trying to ask of our data sets, and without a lot of extra effort and work trying to extract all the data out for ourselves, we can't really answer those questions. So this is the technology showing up to say, look, you have a handful of data sets that have stopped refreshing because the data set source is broken. It will not work. And if it's paused, and if it's been paused for a week, is anyone even really using it? Is it even adding value? And so I think this is where you're to your point, Tommy, the statistics, the metrics, hey, you've got workspaces that don't have tags. That observation is only relevant if you have a policy around things need to have tags on them, right? And what kind of tags are they? That comes from the central BI space. So I think this is a tool that will have to kind of incorporate. It'll have to be, we have to see how the technology works, and then we have to modify our policies and our companies to figure out how to best utilize this tool to our advantage. It's a double part here on this one. We're trying to change data culture with this tool. So that. I think it's going to be some more work here for us to figure out what the pattern should be. Does that make sense?
I 1,000%, because I think you made a perfect point. That dashboard is going to allow us to create those processes, because
Correct.
we can actually see that. We can actually say we're aiming for something, and
Correct.
I can actually see the numeric measure that, which we don't have today. And if you do, you're already doing the APIs and the customization.
You've got to do APIs. Yes, exactly.
Most companies don't have this readily available.
No, and it's not easy to turn on. And the Microsoft reporting gives you a good stream of information, but it doesn't give you like canned reports answering specific questions. It's just, here's the data. So you've got to figure out how to make it work on your own. I agree with that. Well, I think we're about ready to wrap. We're almost at time here. Any kind of final thoughts on the Onelake catalog? Maybe, Tommy, give us a final thought that you have here around where you think this is going to land. Is this going to become your game changer, or is this just going to be a nice to have feature?
And I would love to hear from you guys too, if your plan of attack here. And as I've been looking at the Onelake catalog, playing with it, and seeing the announcements coming from it, this is something where I'm going to be focusing with clients as they continue to adopt Fabric, putting it part of a process. It may not be the central location, it may not be the primary landing spot, but again, I think the best point I've heard today is that idea that the technology is going to be able to adapt or change the process or create processes that we didn't have. And what we can see right now with the Onelake catalog is absolutely something where I will hang my hat on, and I want to see other organizations hang their hat on around creating processes that will help actionable and data quality, at least from a macro point of view, for the organization. The adoption side we can get into, and I'm continue going to monitor, but at least for teams trying to improve their quality, improve the organization of all the content that's in Fabric, this is going to help create those processes.
Seth, any final thoughts here for you as we kind of wrap here?
Yeah, I mean, new feature, new tool, right? So it's going to take some time to, for people and organizations to figure out what aspects are useful. It appears to do a pretty good job at allowing the discoverability, management potentially in some ways, and monitoring of data, and bringing that all together to a main area, I think offers up new opportunities to streamline some of those work efforts. And it certainly does, what it needs to from a layperson perspective, which is give a centralized place for you to talk to people about how they discover things that are available to them in the organization. And I think streamlines a lot of that communication. So it's a good step, and it's a great thing to have something like this that overarching looks at the whole environment and brings it together in a place where multiple different personas can get some value out of it.
I feel like when I look at this, I go, this is an interesting tool. It feels like it's trying to fill a gap that, hey, with everything else that Microsoft has been building, all the pipelines, the data flows, Microsoft has taken the best of Azure and brought it directly into the Fabric and the Power BI ecosystem. It feels to me like Purview is still on the edges, on the outside of Fabric. And it feels to me like this is a first foray or introduction to trying to bring some of the Purview features directly inside Fabric. It feels like the integration between Fabric and Purview hasn't been as tight as we wanted, and people are not adopting it. The story's not resonating. So Microsoft is taking the effort. I mean, this is, anytime we see new features like this show up, this is a monumental effort by Microsoft. They've got to find funding, they got to find people, they got to go build features, they got to put a PM on it. Like, this is an effort. So for them to kind of, what I'm looking at, this rebuild Purview to some degree, speaks to the fact I think they're committed to helping people discover things, and they're going to bring those aspects directly in the tool. Is it my go-to tool right now? Yeah, probably not. It needs some more information in it. So I think with some refinement, adding some metadata, more metadata that was already there into it, I think it actually could be a really compelling tool. But I think it needs a little bit more work on the helping you discover real columns that you care about the data sets. So I think that'll really help. I do love the fact that they've integrated domains and filtering by domains in this. I think that is a pure underutilized feature at this point. All right. That being said, thank you all very much for jumping to the podcast. We appreciate it, for hanging on to us. Hopefully some of you have been around for the full 3 years we've been out there, as we talked earlier in the podcast. But we just want to say thank you. We appreciate your time. We know it's valuable. You could be doing other things like, doing a crossword puzzle, or doing a Sudoku, or, going for a walk, or maybe even talking to your family. You could be doing other important things that are not the podcast. So we do appreciate you spending a lot of the ears with us, listening to us. Our only ask, though, is if this is something we just do for fun, please share with somebody else. Let somebody else know that you've enjoyed the podcast and that they might get some value from this one. So hopefully you've unpacked some things around Data Catalog. Tommy, where else can you find the podcast?
You can find us on Apple and Spotify, wherever your podcast. Put us in your catalog. Make sure to subscribe and leave a rating. It helps us out a ton. Share with a friend, since we do this for free. If you have a question, idea, or a topic that you want us to talk about for a future episode, head over to powerbi.tips/podcast, leave your name and a great question. And finally, join us live every Tuesday and Thursday, 7:30 a.m. Central, and join the conversation on all Power BI Tips social media channels.
Thank you all so much, and we appreciate you, and we'll see you next time.